Is now a good time to buy a house here in the Orlando housing market? Well, before you click away, I'm going to go ahead and give you a vague answer up front, and then I'm going to go into detail. So hear me out and stay tuned here. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about the housing market, I did a video only 2 weeks ago here on the channel. So click the little card that pops up here in the corner of the screen to go take a look at that video. It goes into all the numbers, but the gist of that video is that median prices have held extremely strong despite higher interest rates, higher supply, and they're not going down, even in Volusia County where supply, in some cases, is reaching over 8 months. Year over year, things have actually gone up 15 grand in value over there. Moral of the story is prices have not come down. They've had every opportunity to, they're not. But the question is now a good time to buy in the real estate market in Orlando? So let's dive into that one right now. So yes, it is a great time to buy a house here in the Orlando market if you can, one, afford the property, and two, plan to be there long term. So I say afford the property, and that's because right now affordability is at an all-time high. A lot of people just want to jump into home ownership and they stretch themselves way too thin. They take way too high of a debt to income ratio, and they put themselves in a hard financial bind even though they own a home. All right, now two, it is not a good time to buy if you can't comfortably afford the payment. And two, if you plan to live there short term, it has never been a good time to buy a house no matter what. So don't just take a possible market shift or anything like that into consideration there. It's never been a good time to sell, because when you go to sell a property, there's actually commissions you have to pay. You've got to pay taxes, you've got to pay title insurance and so forth. There's a lot of closing costs there. So you have to let the market appreciate. And so it's never been really a good time to buy if you're planning on selling in just a short period of time. That would be thinking like an investor, and investors have a total different ideology over putting down roots into a home. So if you're considering buying, I want you to think about this in the long term. Don't think short term, think long term. And if you think long term, the market of the moment does not matter at all. If you can afford to buy the house, buy the house. The market of the moment doesn't matter, because the market only matters when you go to sell the house. So let's say you bought your forever house and you were there 10 years and you bought it at, I don't know, 300,000 as an example, 10 years ago. And in the meantime, the market just absolutely tanked 50%. And then it came back up and now it's worth, 325,000, 350,000. Well, guess what? One, you have built up an extreme amount of equity in that through mortgage payments, and the price has appreciated. But in the middle of it, when you weren't planning on selling, there was chaos going on in the market. Doesn't matter, because when you went to go sell the house, it was a good time for you to sell. So think of it long term. Doesn't matter what the market of the moment is right now. If you can comfortably afford the property, matters when you go to sell. So there's three things that I want to cover. One, if you can afford to buy the house right now and you plan to live there long term, go for it. If you can afford to buy the house now and you plan to be there less than 5 years, let's talk about it a little bit more. We'll get into the hyper local markets where that's at. Thirdly, if you're planning on buying new construction, let's really talk about that, because if there are any opportunities in this market right now, it's going to be near new construction communities at the resale homes, not through the developer. The developer right now, and theoretically, yes, if you can afford the payments, you plan to be there long term, go for it. But right now, home builders are offering all of these incentives, such as low interest rates and closing costs, because they can't sell the property at the prices that they're asking. If they could sell the property at those prices, they wouldn't give you anything. But because they can't afford to sell the properties at those prices, buyers aren't willing to pay for it, they have to offer everything in the book to try to get people in the door to buy their product. But because they can't, they're giving everything away. Another huge reason why homeownership is a big factor towards overall wealth, especially going into the retirement years and being able to pass on wealth through the next generation, is it's a forced investment of money over a period of time into an asset that appreciates. Now, renting is also a forced investment into a housing cost over a long period of time, but you don't have an asset at the end of it, and the rent payment will never go away unless for some reason you find somebody to just give you free rent. Let me know if you find anybody like that, or somebody who's willing to do that, because that's pretty cool. And I've got people that would love it. Think of the housing expenses. You've either got a forced rent payment or you've got a forced mortgage payment if you're financing. One of them has a portion of it going to principal, which builds up equity in it. And that mortgage payment goes into an asset that grows on average 4% year over year. Yes, seasons ebb and flow, just like any kind of asset out there or even the stock market. Seasons ebb and flow into the value of that. But over the course of a period of time, over a long period of time, it's about 4% year over year. Renting, we've known rental expenses to go up year over year over a long period of time, and they never go away. So if you're considering the long-term play here, now you're not thinking about your short term here. If you think long-term, housing is a massive advantage over those who are just renting. Now, I want to preface this and also say renting is not bad. There is a time and place for rent. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy a house today just so that you can be building up wealth, because housing should be a blessing, not a curse. If you go and buy a house today and you max out your debt to income ratio because you just need that house and you're not fully ready to go, let's say you take a 50% debt to income ratio just for housing. Well, what happens if an AC breaks? What happens if a roof leaks? What happens if water heater goes out? Those are homeownership responsibilities that you now have to pay for. Because you put so much of your income into the monthly payment on the mortgage, you can't afford to do these other things. And now that house has just become a curse to you rather than a blessing. So don't get into that position. So buy wise. The next thing is, if you're really dying to buy a house and you can comfortably afford it, but you're afraid the market's going to tank next year, just remember, if you're buying for the long term, you're buying for the right reasons, next year doesn't matter at all. If you're really so hesitant about the market collapsing, I would even say you don't even really know where you want to live just yet because you haven't pulled the trigger on buying a house. So if you have any questions here about the real estate market in Orlando, want questions about budgeting for housing, want questions about what homeownership costs look like, anything like that, go ahead and give me a call here on the phone number on the screen or the email here in the show notes here on the screen as well. We would love to help you out with that. And we hope that we can help you out in your journey to homeownership and moving here to the Orlando area. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.